We are live, apparently. Hello, my fellow foam flinging enthusiasts. It is I, Andrew, aka Dark Sweep, and welcome to another episode of The Foam Zone. Okay. Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Foam Zone, and I guess happy Halloween. Can you guys see my eyes? Is the effect working? Yes. Those are my natural eyes. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Shout out to General Strife, of course. I see that you're in the chat. The Foam Zone, welcome. This is your first time joining us here. The Foam Zone is a bi-weekly streaming interview show every other Wednesday here on the World Foam Alliance YouTube channel, where we interview everyone that is associated, affiliated, and has anything to do with our hobby of foam flinging fun. Whether you be a club admin, organizer, modder, content creator, or if you just like to shoot foam for fun, we would love to have you on the show. So, yes, so welcome. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, and don't forget to visit us at the worldfoamalliance.org website to register yourself and your club. The website, as I have mentioned before, is going through a major overhaul to get things in working tip-top shape. So that is exciting. You should be able to find out where your local clubs are in the area and start connecting, as well as create some player profiles. We also have Foam's Giving will be coming up in November, date of November 23rd. So November 23rd, Foam's Giving. This is our annual traditional charity drive that we do here on the World Foam Alliance YouTube channel, 24-hour live stream with everyone that you know, all your favorite foam flingers, all in one place for 24 hours, talking foam flinging, at the same time raising money for an amazing cause, Toys for Tots, I believe. We're going to do it again for this year. So if you are interested in participating, donating prizes, or just providing any type of support for Foam's Giving, go ahead and reach out to us. We would love to have you be a part of that. Let's see. Any other announcements that are coming up? Yeah, so one thing we'll be talking about in a second is this weekend. Well, first of all, I would like to say that Maryland Mayhem has been officially formally announced. Maryland Mayhem 2025 returns the weekend of May 10th, which is Mother's Day weekend. It's going to be a 3-day weekend event. Again, Friday, the Maryland Foam Tournament. Last year, we had 18 pro competing teams fighting down for the #1 spot. And then on Saturday this year, instead of the main event of HVZ UMBC Invitational, we will have the 11th hour Blaster Battle and BlasterCon being held that Saturday. So Friday will be the tournament. The very next day will be BlasterCon - 11th hour Blaster Battle. And then on Sunday, the main event will be HVZ Invitational, courtesy of the UMBC HVC Club. So if you need more information, please visit us on the website at the MarylandFoamAlliance.com website. There is a tab for Maryland Mayhem. Click that button and you should be able to get all the information that you need that is currently available. We'll be providing more information as we get closer to the dates and as we get closer to the new year. So stay tuned. But yes, mark your calendars, make travel arrangements, and get ready for some more mayhem. And then, lastly, we have a very fun special event, which we do have a special guest coming on tonight to discuss. But we have the Battle of Endor 2024, Battle of Endor, hosted by Maryland Nerf Herders, the Maryland Foam Alliance, here in Severn, Maryland. at Harvest Bible Baptist Church at their forest field down in Maryland. So if you're available, we invite you to join. It is a lot of fun. It's basically Maryland's version of APOC. It is a battle in the woods, an all natural cover, 200 FPS all day long. Bring your own ammo. It's a lot of fun, but we'll talk more details about that in a second. So, but yes, if you are available to join us, we would love to have you. It is this Saturday. I know a bunch of people are coming in for it, so we would love to have you as well. So, uh, but yeah, so before we get started, let me just take a look at the chat. Who do we got? We got Andy Griff, General Strike, Dead Man's Foam. What's up? Again, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe. If you have anything that you would like to comment or have any questions for anything, guest, or you just want to chit chat, just go ahead and drop those down in the live chat comment, and we'll see what we can do to get those super chatted and up and going for you. But and I think we may try to get the phone lines up tonight. We will see, and give an opportunity to call in. We haven't called in for a while. I miss you guys, so we'll see if we can get that going. But yeah, let's start out by talking. Let's talk about our event this weekend, or should I say, Maryland Nerf Herders, Maryland Foam Alliance's event this weekend, which is the Battle of Endor. And to talk more about it and give us more details and answer any FAQ questions there may be, we have none other than my partner in crime, Boomstick Mods, is in the house somewhere. At least the back to oh, someone else has the holiday spirit as well. Nice, nice. That's legit. How are you? Oops. It sounds like we are missing audio from Boomstick. Hold on, Boom.
Aha. I was.
There we go. There we go. You did it to yourself. All right. Well, welcome, Boomstick. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you?
Technically challenged, apparently. Going well. Preparing for Battle of Endor this weekend, mostly. We were just out there this past Saturday to kind of walk the field, figure out where we're going to put respawns and the actual boundary of the whole team as well, or field rather as well. So we're pretty much all set and ready. A few differences from last year, but overall everything seems really good. Pretty much the forest gets cleaner every year. The person who actually owns that section of the forest has been doing a lot of work to clean it up. I mean, they just had a wedding in there a month ago, so it's way cleaner than when we used to play in it back in when we first had our first Battle of Endor in 2020. So this is
with all the barbed wire.
Yes, with all the barbed wire.
That's right. Well, before we get started on Endor, I do want to just chit chat really briefly and quickly, because I know that you attended this year's Ragnaroktober out in California, and I haven't heard much feedback, honestly, or seen too much about it within the community, which is surprising. Seen a few photos here and there. I did catch the stream of the comp for BTA Koth, but I really haven't seen or heard too much about it, aside from the general consensus that it was a lot of fun, and I would love to hear your thoughts and experience of it, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Oh, absolutely. It was a very fun time. I went last year, so this is actually my second Ragnaroktoberfest, and I thoroughly enjoy everything about it, both with the con on Friday night and, of course, with the comp practice earlier in the day. So we literally went practice, then from practice to the convention, which, man, that was a really well-run convention this year, with both like the nice hall set up, and then they had panels going on. They had a blaster building panel. Obviously, they had the live foam news. FNC. My brain's not working tonight, apparently. So that was a really cool addition to see this year, that they had actual live panels. Now, I was at my table the majority of the night. I think I took 2 laps around the room, but other than that, I was just at my table. So I didn't get to experience the panels, but from what I've heard, they were pretty good. And it is a really cool addition to see that it's becoming more and more like an actual convention where it's more than just the vendor hall. You also have other things going on at the same time, which I think has just been a trend lately to where as the hobby has been progressing, more and more things are being added to the con side of things. Like at Survival Fest, there was a whole slew of things going on, as well as the vendor hall. And obviously with 11th Hour Blaster Battle, you had the vendor hall and the PvP field going on. So it's nice to see that there are more things being done around the convention side of things. Because again, the vendors are great, and it's awesome getting to walk around and see these stores kind of in person, which you don't usually get to do. You usually only see them online. But yeah, it's a nice bit of changes that you've seen with the additions to the convention. And then obviously you have the Stalking Dead, which is the next day, which is a full day of both human and zombie slaying, because it's a human versus human versus human versus zombie event. I had the honor of being the blue team captain or cyan team captain this year. I may or may not have stolen the blue team flag, which is now in my house. But that was a ton of fun. I had a lot of fun last year. This year, again, same thing, a lot of fun getting to play against the other humans. Me and Piggy, who was the magenta team captain, did team up for a little bit there, because Piggy approached me literally the day before. Was like, hey, start up tomorrow. Why don't our teams team up for a bit? So I'm sorry, yellow team. That was unfortunate to do. But it was
conspiracy.
Look, they put two people as captains who are both technically on the same team. We both play on Netflix. We're used to working together. So it's still a ton of fun. Oh man, I love the one thing, and Dr. Flex talked about this in one of his recent videos. The props for Ragnar Oktoberfest are next level. Like, it is so cool seeing all the things that you go out and collect, and like the custom props that are printed for the event. Like, I think I got one of their currencies, but there was also a whole slew of other things too that were just so cool, and it really adds more to the actual gameplay by having these really cool props. And it's something I would love to see more HVZs do. I understand budgetary constraints, and that takes time to make such cool props. Obviously, there's the final boss that they do this every year. This year, it was some flying drones and like a spider drone.
That's so cool.
Year. I made it. I survived longer this year than I did last year. I made it to the final boss, but I did not make it out of the first phase. Funny enough, I died the exact same way that I died last year, which was Barrett hit me with a brain. Happened the same exact thing last year. And so I ended up dying. But then I got to do one of my favorite things to do, which is play as the media zombie. So I got to walk around. I try to make it as obvious as possible with my bandana, making sure it's nice and obvious. But I walk around filming, being as nonchalant as possible, and going around collecting tags. I think I got 4 or 5 people at RAG, which was so much fun. One of which being Gavin, from Gavin Fuzzy. That was a lot of fun. It's so nice getting to kind of be silly and have fun in these games, especially with people that from the hobby who you don't get to see very often. Like all the Singaporeans, like Gavin and Peggy both. And honestly, the whole slew of them are just so much fun to play with, as well as all of our foam flingers on the West Coast, who obviously being on the East Coast, I don't get to see very often. So right. As always, didn't get to talk to people as much as I would have liked to. I really wish I'd gotten a chance to hang out with Flux a bit more, and Jose and Brett and all of the West Coasters, really, just because they're so much fun to hang out with. Like, I got the opportunity to hang out with them a bit at Mayhem, and they were just so much fun to be around. Right. But so much going on, it's like, all right, on to the next thing, because we wrapped up Ragnar Oktoberfest at, I think, 8:30, which is better than last year. Last year, I think it went to like 11.
Oh,
which is tough when you have a tournament the next day that you're supposed to come.
Right.
So a little late, but way better than the year before. Again, still loads of fun. And then getting up the next morning, going and playing in the competitive 5v5 King of the Hill, which was live streamed and was done really well. I'm really happy with like the way that they do their live streams. I think is fantastic, and I definitely feel like I learn every time I go to RAG or any other large scale event. I feel like I'm just learning more and more things to bring back home with me so I can apply them to my own local events, which is I think is really beneficial. And from my interactions with other event runners, which it's really fun getting to interact with people who also host large scale events, because you have that commonality. I'm like, oh, you host Frag? Okay, well, I'm one of the hosts of Maryland Mayhem. Oh, you host Survival. So you had this common ground of like, okay, we've all kind of been in the trenches of hosting large scale events and how difficult
Much we hate our lives at some point.
Yeah, well, it's like I tell people, my favorite events are the ones that I don't have to host.
For sure. Absolutely.
But my team, I was playing with Nebula East again. We unfortunately did not make podium this year. I think we tied for 5th or whatever placement we did. We made it out of the first bracket of eliminations, so small victory. So it was a ton of fun, and King of the Hill is an exhausting game mode. It's very exciting to watch though, because of it's got that constant action.
Right.
Like because of the respawns and everything, you can just get a lot more exciting gameplay out of something as opposed to like a single elimination where there's less risky plays going on because you only have that one life. Now, obviously, we've made adjustments to Flag Dash to improve that, but I just think inherently a game with respawns is going to have a bit more exciting gameplay just because you can make those more riskier plays and take a hit.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, sounds like it was a lot of fun. I can't wait to see some more content and reviews come out for it. It is on my bucket list. One day I'm going to make it out there and join you guys one day when work permits it. Sorry, go ahead. Yes, sir. But I do want to just let everyone know that has joined us. Currently, we do have Boomstick Mods on here to talk about Endor, our event that is coming up this weekend, just to give you a quick overview. But we do have I apologize, I meant to introduce earlier, we do have our main featured guest of the evening, who is content creator, hobbyist extraordinaire, Mongoose Jake in the waiting room. So please stand by. We will have Mongoose Jake on momentarily. But we'll go back and just quickly do a overview with Boomstick Mod discussing this weekend's event, which is Endor. Now, Boom, why don't you talk about what the Battle of Endor is, what the origins of it, and kind of the details and what people can expect, and what they, answer any kind of frequently asked questions that people may have regarding this. This is the video from last year's End War that I just released last night or this morning, probably at like 2 a.m. in the morning. First video I've done, had a chance to edit in a very long time. So if you haven't got a chance to see it, go check it out. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, this is last year's End War. But yeah, tell us about, End War. Battle of Endor. Boom, go ahead. Boom, go to End War also. Highly recommend that as well. But yeah, go to Endor this weekend if you actually want to have fun this weekend. So, but yeah, tell us about the Battle of Endor and how that all happened.
Well, the Battle of Endor is our yearly forest battle. Obviously, we are the Maryland Nerf Herders, which draws from Star Wars teams, obviously, because you know the whole Nerf Herder thing. Everyone knows from Star Wars. And so with it being in the forest and us having kind of some Star Wars connections, it was like, all right, our forest battle is going to be the Battle of Endor. And there is a forest that is right... Ooh, my camera started falling. There is a forest that is right next to the play area that we usually play at for our regular games, which if you've seen any of Dark Street's content, you'll have seen what that field looks like. This is our once a year because of the amount of cleanup and effort it is to run the games. We only do it once a year, and it makes it a little bit more special. Where we go into the forest and we do 200 FPS all day, flinging foam amongst the trees. It is a completely different feel to pretty much any other event that I've been to as far as the PvP aspect is concerned. The closest you get is APOC, but it's still not the same as when you're playing on a paintball field versus being in like a literal forest. Like there's no paths, there's no like set like structures or anything like that. It's just trees, and it's a lot of trees. And it creates fascinating gameplay because you'll literally be in situations, and this happened to me and one of the other MBFA founders, Ben, who he and I were both on either sides of a bush, unloading mags at each other. None of those darts went through that bush, so we're both just unloading. No progress is being made. I know I keep saying how it's a lot of fun, but it really is just a different experience to be able to play in the woods like that, where obviously it's a little bit more treacherous underfoot. So we do stress to our players, hey, careful, watch your footing. This is just the legit woods. This is not even terrain. But like, that's part of the fun. Like, it's interesting seeing how people, because you have to move a little bit slower or a little bit more carefully, and deciding how you want to make your plays against the opposing team, using trees as cover, and some people showing up in ghillie suits, which is always a ton of fun and really helps in the abs. We get people in costumes. Like we had, I think, 3 people in costume last year. I think 1 Mandalorian, 1 clone trooper, and I think another Mandalorian. The year before, we had a Rebels trooper. I think we're going to have some more people in costume again this year. I know of at least one person flying out from the West Coast to come to Battleborn Endor, which I'm very excited for. I got a chance to meet them at Rag, and they plan on attending this weekend. Like, I think they're flying in Friday, and it's going to be a ton of fun. Like, that's the other nice thing is, like, this is also, like, our event where we try to reach out to nerfers, usually on the East Coast, but it's cool to see people coming from the West Coast, too, to be like, hey, come to our event. This is our special event where we go out and we play in the woods. And it's our one special event that we do that I think really lends itself well to some unique gameplay and can give people a different experience than what they're used to. So yeah, I highly recommend Battle of Endor. We've been doing this. This will be the 4th Battle of Endor that we've done since we first started, and it's only gotten better. And pretty much every way, we're learning what works better in the forest versus like what doesn't work. Like this year, we used to stage on a baseball field, so like that's where everyone would set up, and then we'd walk down into the forest. This year, there's actually enough space cleared out in the forest itself that we're actually going to try and stage in the forest, so that to make it a little bit easier for the players, so that way they're not walking up and down that hill constantly. And hopefully that means more people will dart sweep as well and not disappear into their canopies. Because that is always the biggest trick with our Battle of Endor is we do have to make sure we are sweeping, as this is just forest with animals and other things that could potentially chew on darts and whatnot. So it's important that we clean up after ourselves, and we do a fairly good job of that. We do multiple dart sweeps, and then obviously there's the final dart sweep of the day where we try to get every last dart that we fired. And I think we do a pretty good job. Like the person who actually owns the forest has complimented me in the past saying, yeah, no, I trust you guys. You guys do a great job of cleaning up after yourselves. It's usually better than when you guys got there. So yeah, like that's the main reason why we don't do it more than once a year, just because we have to be so like strict about dart sweeping and making sure that it's getting cleaned up. And it's one of those things where it's like it is a more of a hazard. We wouldn't want to fire foam darts in the forest every month because that would lead to more litter in the forest. So, but doing it once a year and doing a thorough dart sweeping, we found seems to work well overall for Battle of Endor. Behind me, I think, is our group photo from last year. We usually get a really good attendance. I don't think we've broken 100 people yet. for Battle of Endor. I know we got close. I think last year we had like 80 or something. We had a decent amount. I know that. And obviously the goal is to keep growing Battle of Endor because the field is pretty big. Like it's a big field. It's bigger than our normal field that we play on, and it's the forest. So there's plenty of space to spread out on the playing field, and it allows for some unique gameplay. Like we're doing a variation of Titan Ball, but it's going to be more of like a attack and defend style of Titan Ball, where one team is firing at the other team's goal. We're calling it the Death Star Run because all of our game modes for Battle of Endor are Star Wars themed. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that works out with an attack and defend style Titan Ball, where instead of two teams going at once, it's just one team firing at the other to see who can blow up the Death Star faster.
Yeah, I mean, we all the game mode types are Star Wars themed and named. And I remember the car ride. I think we were coming back from something. I forget what it was.
We were going to the field to look at for Maryland Foam Tournament, figuring out how we wanted to set up the cover and whatnot. It was when we first went to. Is when we did that picture with both of us, like showing off the field.
That's right.
That event, that time is when we came up with all these game modes, like just in the car ride going like, okay, well, what if we play this? All right, well, then we could call it Clone Wars. All right, and this one will be The Last Jedi, and these aren't the droids you're looking for. It's a really fun aspect of it, and like I believe red team is the Empire and blue team is the Rebels, and we call them that throughout the day. Fun little Star Wars theming. Like obviously our it's not on my wall because it's on my gear. We have our Battle of Endor patch, which has a stormtrooper being shot at by a bunch of different ammo types. So we have fun with the Star Wars theming, and everyone seems to have a real good time with it. And it's also one of the few times when all of our competitive players from Maryland, so like Magic Smoke and whatnot, get to play on the same team. Usually we have to break them up for balancing purposes, but because there's so many people at Battle of Endor, we're actually usually able to let them play on the same team for once, which does not happen I think there's like 2 events a year where they get to play on the same team. One is APOC for like 1 or 2 rounds before they split them up, and the other is Battle of Endor because we usually have enough people to kind of balance it out against those more competitive players.
That's right. Yeah, I had the Darth Vader helmet last year because when we ran the Jedi rounds, which didn't work out very well for me.
I warned you.
But I have. Oops, that was very anticlimactic. There we go. Not as effective on the screen. Hey, the dog likes it. Yeah, I know. The Chewbacca does not like it. Well, so that is the Battle of Endor. I just wanted to invite you on just to chit chat a little bit about it and give some information. But if you are available to join us this Saturday, we highly recommend it. Are there any things that people should know specifically that are planning to attend that they may not know that you would like them to know?
Well, the main thing is this is our only event where we do not provide ammo. So make sure you're bringing ammo with you to the event. This is our way of one of our ways of encouraging players to dart sweep in the forest, because if we just provided the ammo, people would be less likely to dart sweep because there's no sense of like, oh, I have to get my darts back that I paid for. And we also have a keep what you sweep rule for dart sweeping. So any darts you pick up, you just get to keep, again, to encourage dart sweeping, because that is like one of our biggest like priorities for the event, is making sure it gets cleaned up. So that's the biggest thing that's different from our normal events. Obviously you might want to bring a wagon or something because it's a little bit of a trek from where you're parking to where the staging area is. Similar to how APOC is too, to where like you got a little bit of a walk. I don't think it's as long as APOC's walk is, but it is still a bit of a walk. And we will be doing pizza this year, so that's different than years before. Usually we haven't done, because we usually order pizza for our normal events. So people, we have a small fee that people pay for, and we bring in pizza to help, again, just generating funds for the club. Because as I like to remind people, despite the fact that there are tickets and ticket prices, nobody actually who works at these events makes any money. Andrew, me, Ben, none of us make a dime.
Facts. So very true.
Don't think that we're making money off of these events, because we are not. All the money generated by tickets, merch, pizza, all of that goes straight into the club. And Andrew and I completely volunteer all of our time, sometimes money, sometimes other things. I hook up a trailer to my poor Corolla and haul that to events. So I just like to remind people of that, because some people get the idea that because we do have a ticket price on events, that somehow it's also not still volunteer run, because it's very much volunteer run, and we greatly appreciate all of our volunteers that help out with events. We have a small handful of people who usually show up early for setup and help with adminning and other things. We're very grateful for, because our clubs would not be able to run without them. So I felt
absolutely
like I there.
You're good. Our people, yes. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Boom, for coming on. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this Saturday, and look forward to any one of you guys that are able to join us. So hope to see you guys at the Battle of Endor. And if you can't make it this year, definitely come check it out in the future. So, but with that being said, if you have any questions for regarding Endor or anything about that, go ahead and drop that down in the live chat comment section. Otherwise, without further ado, I would like to bring on our featured guest, who has been patiently waiting in the waiting room to be brought on. But our guest is someone whose channel, obviously, I'm sure all of us are very familiar with. I definitely stumbled upon the channel when I first started learning about this hobby, along with others. And you probably know them fairly because they are unfairly or fairly been dubbed the Buzzbee guys. So without further ado, I would like to bring on Jake, or AKA Mongoose Jake.
Hey, thanks.
How are you?
Doing
Absolutely.
Well. Thanks for having me on, Andrew. It's
absolutely.
And I do 100% say that the whole Buzzbee and me being mixed as one, like almost inseparable, that is fair. That is fair. I've done it to myself.
You've embraced it at this point,
yes,
which is
absolutely,
which is not a bad problem to have. So no, I know how to. Go ahead.
Much like I did with Mongoose on my other main hobby of mountain biking, it's like that's just 1-to-1. If I wasn't using the same username, across all of what I do, it would be like Mongoose Jake, Buzzbee Jake at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised I haven't been caught. Well, I have been Dart Zone guy at some point, but yeah, not to the extent as you. But hey, one day, maybe, hopefully, Dart Zone, if you're listening. And I'm sure they are. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, kind of outside of the hobby, where you're from, and what you do.
Well, going back far enough, I'll just start with the whole origin for any of those who haven't, watched when I was on with Maritime Foam, or who've maybe not watched my exposés and my own videos that go way off on every tangent possible. But the whole background of Mongoose Jake is, well, you can kind of see over my shoulder, there is the bike frame. Well, the whole Mongoose was when I used to race Mongoose mountain bikes back in high school and just out, and I was actually very seriously into it, if you could believe it, even more so than I am into blasters. So got the whole moniker of Mongoose, and that just carried on. When you make your email addresses, you make your usernames here, there, everywhere. It's like, okay, it's easy. I'm Jake, add Mongoose, let's run with it. And just carry it on. And, outside, basically, I'm just a normal working guy that at some point just decided I'm not growing up. I'm going to enjoy my bikes. I'm going to enjoy my blasters. And I'm just going to keep doing it on into adulthood. And I never look back from it because, my parents kind of, as a teenager and going back even into elementary school, they like full-heartedly, just supported each as I just kept on doing it because I got into Nerf like everybody else. As a kid, you play with Nerf blasters. And then in middle school, I started doing paintball, airsoft, and did it seriously. Like went to fields, actually got a little competitive with the paintball in particular. And then the small group of us here in central Kentucky, we went and started, getting back into Nerf. We all still, had our childhood blasters, but we were like, okay, let's find out some more things. And then let's tinker with them, going back to the old penny mods, things like that. And, stretching springs, things we look at now as like, oh, that's terrible mods. But we were doing what we could, and we were playing on the same exact fields. And as I was listening to Boomstick describe his, Battle of Endor, I was like, this is what we were doing early 2000s. We were literally playing in the same, 5-acre woods that we had for paintball and airsoft. We were using that as our very, very rudimentary Nerf battles. And we were doing like, 5-on-5 with, 5 hits, you're out. It was like King of the Hill style, basically. But it was capture the flag. We have, 3 checkpoints and you'd have to capture those. And we didn't know that there was such a thing across the country that was springing up like this. I'm talking like this is 2004, 5, 6. And then even after, I got married and my wife, she got into airsoft, paintball, and then blasters. And we just kept going. And at some point I was like, you know what? I found and stumbled into the very earliest people on YouTube. I was like, wait a minute. I had this channel I've been doing World of Tanks videos, very, very basic ones on. I was like, let me switch this up and let me get into sharing like my whole, experiences with blasters, whether it be a review or a mod or whatever. And, coming back from 2013 to now, here we are.
So, what is the first blaster you remember picking up as a kid? And what was it about that blaster that kind of infatuated you and got you into the hobby? What was it that you loved about it?
These are going to be ones that anybody who is a vintage Nerf collector is going to immediately go like, oh, I know that one. The Nerf Rattler and the Secret Shot. Those were 2 that I got very early. And then I also had the Firestorm, the Nerf Firestorm. That was the Firestorm was like the way, way back predecessor to what is my blaster from Busby. But the Firestorm was a air pump with a cylinder fed instead of a clip. That it was cylinder fed, full auto. And those are the things that basically I absolutely adored those, and I literally used them until they could no longer function.
and what do you think the initial, as a kid picking up these blasters, what do you think the initial appeal was for foam flinging? Why did you like it?
Well, it's kind of like that almost innate fun factor that a lot of us had when, going back to the late 90s and early 2000s when Nerf had like all these weird, neat gimmicks, like that Strike Force. I think it was like 2021, wasn't it, or 2012? I forget the series now. This is making me look really bad among anybody who does the vintage Nerf. But they had that Strike Force, and it had, of course, I had the Manta Ray when I was a kid, and just the neat gimmicks. That was what really spoke to me, and then I would take things like the old vintage Megas and we would use PVC to rebarrel them down for the whistlers, and trying to get whatever we can to get more range.
Right.
And I liked both the neat, fun silliness of some of those blasters, while also the tinkering side, because that appealed to me, specifically. Which, of course, now that led into modding blasters.
And then listening to your interview with Maritime, I think one thing that I found interesting was you mentioning at some point you got heavily involved into airsoft and paintball, but you kind of found your way back to foam flinging. I think that's always a fun dynamic to talk about because obviously, as content creators or just people in the hobby, we'll post something and then, of course, inevitably someone's going to be like, why don't you play airsoft or paintball, bro? So, but my response is always kind of like, well, we actually like to do it all, why not everything, So I'm just kind of interested in your perspective as someone that, as a child played with Nerf and then evolved and grew into airsoft and paintball. And then now you're kind of found your way back into the foam flinging space. So.
Well, for me, the main thing of why I kind of moved away from the paintball and into airsoft was for one, the cost. I mean,
right.
It was quite simple. Like we started out as a group with what paintball markers you could buy locally. We had a sporting goods store that carried them, and you could start out and be decently competitive. Spending about like $100. Which late 90s, early 2000s, 10, 12, early teenager me, that was doable. And then as that kind of progressed, we had more and more of our group who were spending, $300, $400, $500, $600, which got way out of touch with me. And, it's literally spent to where I couldn't keep up. So that kind of got me out of paintball, as I literally couldn't spend enough to keep up with the newer markers. And so I traveled actually over back into airsoft, because at first, again, we went through the whole thing. Like I could have the fun with, we'll say, combat hobby. And it started out, very affordable, again, for like 12 or 13-year-old me. And I could do that. But then the same story. Okay. It's like all of a sudden, it's like, okay, my $70 airsoft blaster, my $120 airsoft blaster, these are no longer competitive enough. And it's like, okay, I'm getting priced out of these. And all of a sudden, it's like, here's Nerf again. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Dart blasters, they're still just as cheap as I remember as a kid. It's like, and I still have them, and I can tinker with them in my own garage workshop on my dad's workbench. And it's like, okay, and the ammo's reusable.
Right.
It's like the others, it's like the ammo's not reusable. And
right.
when it's like, okay, to me, it ended up being just as fun. The engagement range is closer, at the time, but it was just as fun. And we were literally still using the same exact, area, the same 5 acres of woods that we were meeting at. It's like, okay, I didn't see any issue. And so we ended up switching into a blaster group instead of paintball and airsoft.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, yeah, definitely the cost of entry to play, to do foam flinging, to do Nerf is definitely arguably way less expensive than something like airsoft and paintball. But would you say, I don't know the answer myself. I think there is an argument to be made as the hobby evolves into higher performing blasters and people are modding and creating really high power blasters. But for at least for me, in my opinion, currently, I don't think there's definitely as much of a sense of a pay to win aspect in the foam flinging space. I feel like just the cost of entry allows
I
you
would agree with
basically to
that.
show up with a sock or a throwable, and or just if you want to run and evade, you can literally just show up to a war and just run around and have fun that way. So yeah, I don't think the aspect of pay to win is as prevalent, but I'm wondering what your thoughts of. Do you think there is going to be a point in time where that does happen for Nerf?
I would say yes and no. I mean, because whatever your end goal is, like for instance, like what I started to get more into, as I got into dart blasters more seriously, towards like the 20 teens and up to before 2021, we were doing more HVZ, and HVZ performance doesn't matter.
Right.
It's you use whatever blaster that you can comfortably function with and that you can reload quickly. It can be anything from a front load, like I'm a Busby guy, so I'm gonna say like the Blitz 6, a front load, but it could be anything. It could be a Nerf strong arm. I mean, I know Beret, he went and he used a Maverick.
Right.
It that literally proves the point. Like I know he did that intentionally, as his thing, but like HVZ, it exists, so you can use whatever you come with. It can be straight out of a stock package, and you can still have just as much fun. So if that's your goal, enjoyment, then that's never going to be pay to win. Now,
Right.
the like the 5-on-5s or the extreme velocity, there's going to be a little bit of, you kind of got to pay a little bit in order to reach those thresholds. And
Right.
so maybe that, but that would be the only realm in the blaster world where that's going to be a case. Because, even then, 200 FPS is not unattainable from somebody with a stock blaster from, as I call it, the big four, not pro level, like X Shot, a Busby, Nerf, or Dart Zone, not their pro offerings. Like I have a couple of over 200 FPS Busby Sentinels, and I've got a Twist Fury I'm building right now, and I've got a Snipe that hits 200, and I don't have more than about $30 into a couple of those. So even the 200 FPS realm is accessible on the cheap.
Right.
So
which is amazing, because you would never imagine that, like 10 years ago.
Right, and that's something that like you can't do in the paintball or airsoft world, and
Right.
your experience genuinely suffers. Because they don't really do HVZ. They don't do closer engagement ranges where you can use, lesser. But
yeah, and it's kind of like what I always say when I talk when I have conversations with people about blasters and high end blasters. It really, at the end of the day, it really, at least as far as we're concerned with foam flinging in many cases, until you're talking about kind of like comp, but it's really not the blaster. It's really the player that's using the blaster, or it's really the player. It's not the blaster. It's really the player. It's kind of what I always say. So, so let's talk about where you actually get a chance to play at. You're in Kentucky. I know there was a group that was active before the pandemic, but it's kind of subsided since then. Where are you getting your foam flinging action these days?
Now it's mostly just very small scale, like neighborhood style, like throwback to, old days of when I first got into blasters, because we don't have as many players anywhere around. So it's, for me, my bulk is plinking, target shooting, and the true, like you say, ground roots neighborhood battle of, 3-on-3s in the backyard, or,
Right.
Whatever it might be, however many you can somehow scrounge together. And I've got to try to remedy that. I've had, life things going on, as some may or may not be aware, to where I've kind of not pushed to get back into a bigger group. And that is 100% on me. But like next year, I'm planning to attend more events, as, I've kind of went through the things I went through. And next year is kind of like I've pointed myself to that. It's like, okay, 2025, you're going to go and get back more into it.
What are some of the groups that you have been able to make it out since you have been?
Oh, that when I say it's just been the small scale stuff, that's been here, and it's not a group that's like would be nationally known. It's literally some of the remnants of players that we've gotten together and to a local park, and don't even have a group name.
Gotcha. So just doing a good old school backyard Nerf war.
That's
then.
literally, and
Nice.
with the newer blasters, some of them are like the 150 FPS battles, but a lot of them are just 100 FPS.
Right.
So,
and
when I say like ground roots, I mean true ground roots, back to the throwback days of you get as many people as you can with blasters, get them together.
That's right, and that's how it all starts. What are some events or some clubs that you would be interested or looking forward to maybe attending in the future?
Now, next year I was planning to get to Kane at least about every other month, and cool. I think next year will be my first official trip to End War, and I had been entertaining the thought of coming up to see you guys. So I don't know what life will permit, but those have been a couple of my main goals.
And I haven't.
Go ahead. I was going to go ahead and try to see, just on a personal level. He's reached out a number of times. I had been wanting to go out and get to meet up with CR Nerf.
Who is in the chat right now? Actually,
he's over there in Iowa. I hadn't really even told him about that, but he's reached out to me so many times. He's been very supportive, and he has been hosting events over there in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I had been entertaining the thought in the back of my mind to try to get that on the schedule for next year, just to get out there once.
Yeah, absolutely. We just had a CR Nerf on, I think, the week before last, or just a couple weeks ago. So, he's definitely doing some great outreach work over there. And I'm hoping to make it out there as well. I want to play in one of the laser tag arena events that he hosts. So
yeah, we had one here in my current town I live in. We had a Nerf arena, and unfortunately during the pandemic it closed. And that was a place that I went. So it was it was called the War Zone, and it was located right here, literally 15 minutes down from my driveway. So unfortunately, like, we were just getting things built up with a good group of maybe like 20 that was showing up every 2 weeks. And then we had a local arena. Unfortunately, this area was one of the ones hit by that. Didn't kill it completely, but it certainly did put it down for a little while. But yeah, for me personally, next year has a bunch of darts being thrown of, I'd like to do this, and let's hope some of them stick.
We'd love to have you down here in Maryland if you get a chance to make it out. So I really wanted to have you on here because obviously you are known as the Buzzbee guy, and I feel like oftentimes Buzzbee doesn't get the love it deserves. So I would love to just discuss kind of your content as a content creator on YouTube, kind of how that started with World of Tanks and evolved into reviews, and then kind of how the Buzzbee aspect got involved with it, and just talk a little bit about your overall approach to your content creation and your relationship with Buzzbee.
Well, going back to where it all started with the World of Tanks, it's like I'm not a gamer in any way, shape, or form, or sense of the word. But my wife and I both got into playing that back in 2012 off of a none other than FPS Russia doing a sponsored video about World of Tanks. And I started doing videos on it after I had gotten like enough knowledge to share about it. And I decided that, okay, the World of Tanks thing is not really something I want to try to go full on in, but it's like, I love blasters. And I was already doing a mountain bike channel under the same name, Mongoose Jake. But I was like, I really love blasters and I want to share my experiences of that. And I just started doing it. Like, one of my early reviews was of not a Buzzbee, it was actually the X-Shot Reflex. I absolutely love that blaster. That is my favorite front load pistol ever made. As far as the front load rear prime pistols, the X-Shot Reflex. So if everybody thinks just Busby, no, that's my number one for a front load rear prime. And it's like, that was literally, you go back to it. It's like, I'm outside after we had a backyard war of about 15 or 16 of us. And it's like, it's a hot day. I was sweaty, not high quality content, but I was just giving my true, honest opinion. And I was like, I like doing this. And I just kept doing it. And lo and behold, I had like 320 subscribers. And I reached out to Busby. They didn't reach out to me. I actually reached out to them because I had a really good customer service experience. And I'm going to credit the customer service manager. Her name is Carol Fox. And I do believe she's still there as far as I know.
That's what I heard.
I had a Busby Snipe with a broken bolt at one point. And I said, hey, can I order a part? Because they have an actual customer service number where you can call and talk to a person, which is unheard of in this day and age. Even going back to, 2016 or 2015, I was just going to order a bolt because, I'm used to, with my mountain bikes, you have a part you don't just replace the whole thing. You replace the part. And I told her, I said, hey, I just have one that has a broken bolt. Because my dad was playing and he sheared the thing off. He just roughed it, when he was racking it back, and he just ripped the bolt right out of the blaster. And I said, I need to pay for a new one. And she said, no. She said, I just need your address. And a brand new Busby Snipe showed up in the mail. And then after I got the Destinies, which that's my absolute number one favorite blaster in the world, all time, Busby Destiny. I wanted to get more of the clips, the big harmonica clips. And I said, how can I get some? And she said, just give me your address. She said, we don't really have them for sale yet. She said, but I have a couple here on my desk I'm going to send to you. And I'm like, this is unheard of.
That's cool.
And that was like back to back. And then a couple months later, after that interaction, those two, I was like, I want to work with this company. If I'm going to take this blaster thing serious, I'm going to work with this company. And if they turn me down, I only have 300 some subscribers. I had no expectations. And turns out their marketing vice president, she said, I went and watched your videos. She said, you're down to earth. She said, we like who you are, and we think you're going to eventually grow. They said, we would be happy to work with you. And she said, I just got to get your address again, and I'll send you a few to try out. And that was back in like 2017 or 2018. And here we are. And there's been ups and downs. They've released bad blasters. They've released great blasters. And they went through a lot of changes. And, of course, we all do. But long story short, they're great customer service. And I know I'm sounding like a salesman right now, but I'm not trying to be. It's just people can believe what they want. But it was sincere belief in, if that's how they handle a true, I was a nobody. I'm still not really somebody, but at the time, it's like they had no reason to send me as a customer free blasters when it was, I admitted, hey, we broke this thing. I just wanted a part. They're like, no, take care of it. Here you go.
Right. And
then I wanted to buy harmonica clips. Like, no, they're not even for sale yet. Here you go. It's like, that's unheard of customer service. I was like, that's a company I could actually put my stamp of approval on. And so that's a big part of why I love the company. And of course I love the approach that they had of the whole, let's try funky things that sometimes work, sometimes don't, but let's try them. And it ends up becoming to where, I at times sound like a Busby spokesperson. Not trying to, but it just, that's why I ended up getting so heavily invested into Busby as a company. And, I'm just a fan. I like it if companies could all be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I share the same kind of sentiment with my relationship with Dart Zone. There are, I firmly believe in the products that they have to offer, and I want to share the message that they have for performance and quality. So I get that totally, and I think that's fantastic. Customer service definitely goes a long way. Obviously, you're a good example that you can build a relationship just off of having, good customer service. Um, and I will say, I agree. Busby definitely kind of picks up the slack, I think, in areas where Hasbro used to excel as far as gimmicks and trying new things out. I don't think it's any secret that Captain Slug has been a consultant for Busby, along with the Twist Fury. We know the designs came from Taffy. So they are involved with the community, much like Dart Zone. And then even Hasbro. Hasbro has hobby community designers, love it or hate it, whether or not you like it or not. Just happy that their stuff is out there and that community is involved in some capacity, whether it be content creators, designers, or just anyone that's kind of involved. It's pretty amazing, especially in that case with the customer service experience, to be able to uh, you know try to get a part and then all of a sudden kind of become kind of the spokesperson for them is a really cool story. So very cool. As your channel progressed and evolved, what has been your approach? What message are you trying to do? What kind of content are you really trying to get out there, would you say, these days?
Honestly, I don't really have like a specific message other than I just try to approach it I and again, I know almost always get seen as a salesperson, but I just try to share, like, literally, like, every blaster that I review, I have taken it and I've actually used it, whether it be, a week, 2 weeks, a month, to, a small local game. Like I said, like, might be 3-on-3, 5-on-5, whatever it might be. I've used it. And then I hand it off and I try to get at least, somebody to, rack through a few, like, three, 4 mags, and just tell me what they think. And then my reviews might be long-winded, and like I said, they turn into expose of tangent after tangent. I know I do that, but I end up trying to give, like, a real authentic experience of what was this thing like. And I'm I may end up having a very optimistic outlook on almost everything that I review or try, because I just, as a person, I tend to look more on the positive side of things instead of the negative. And, I would have to tell anybody, take my reviews with a grain of salt, because, yeah, I have more of a positive personality. Like, uh, I'm definitely a optimist. So it it's hard to have, like, a direct message other than just I try to have fun with things, even though, like,
Mhm.
my message or caption on my channel is, just an adult trying to have fun. And, you can still, put out a good review without having to bash things. I think you can be like an optimist like I am, and you can still, give a mostly grounded review. And that's, I guess that's kind of how I went with most of mine. It's like, I'm not the most edited or produced in my content. I'm literally a guy with a camera in my garage here, as we are right now. You know, I've got bikes on one side, blasters on the other.
Sure.
And I'm just literally a dude in the garage who's just, sharing what I think, for good, better, or worse.
Very cool. Now we have so I have a couple questions I just want to drop down into the chat. I am curious, uh, what is everyone's favorite Busby blaster? If you have one, go ahead and let us know what your favorite Busby blasters are and why. What are some of your favorite gimmicks from Busby? I'm very curious what everyone has to say. And And let's see if we can get the man behind the curtain to throw up the phone number so we can get a call in or two, if possible, if anyone would like to do that. But yeah, if you, we have Saber Kyle Schilling is in the house. But yeah, my question was going to be, because I know General Strife is starting to create content. CR Nerf creates content, obviously. But what are some tips that you tips or I guess tips or advice you can give for people that are trying to do content creation? And also, what is your setup? I mean, are you shooting on your phone? Do you have lights, audio? What are just some simple setups and advice you can give people as far as doing videos?
I can actually show my setup. It's very simple.
Sure.
It's literally just a HD camcorder with a shotgun mic, and the shotgun mic pretty much costs about as much as the camcorder does, because the audio and lighting is important, and my camera needs an upgrade bad, because like I can see it on my videos. If you watch my channel, it's like it doesn't look like 2024 4K HD. It looks like 2012 720, and I can tell you it's not. This is a full HD camcorder, so but something has been up with it, and so I wouldn't take my advice necessarily absolute on camcorders, but no, I do have a lot of lighting. Like around me, there is plenty of lighting. That's key, and really, I think first and foremost, forget the setup at first, and just be yourself and very genuine. And I wouldn't take me as an expert, because here I am, I started doing this way back, and I just now broke 5,000 subscribers. So I am obviously not the viral expert, but I do still enjoy what I do. I've taken breaks here and there because of life, but I still enjoy what I do. And I think that's the most important thing, is to be genuine and enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, it's going to come through. People are going to see that when they watch. It's going to feel forced, and it can't feel forced. It's got to be you. And, you'd have to learn to accept it. And I still am myself. Some people are going to like it, and some people aren't. And if they don't, then I can't control that. So, I mean, especially when starting out, you'd have to realize that you're just going to have to put a video out every week, because that's just how YouTube works. You got to do at least a video a week. You got to just, try to be consistent about that. And if you are, eventually people will start to find you. And, if people like it, hopefully they'll share it around. And I'm one that I know it'll work against me, so don't take it as advice. I never say to like and share the video, and I think I've only asked that even a couple times, and I do it at the end, because that's probably bad advice for social media. So don't take that as advice. But I think if people genuinely like it, eventually they will share it. So just got to be yourself, got to be genuine.
Absolutely.
And if you're absolutely like, as some people would see me as, overboard with Busby, that's just who I am. That's who I am. So take it or leave it. That's, I mean, you're actually able to see here my Busby Classics wall, which I've got an episode coming up this weekend on that. And then behind me, it's more Busby stuff, along with a Mongoose frame from back in my racing. So it's like, that's me. It's the real deal. And I think anybody starting out, you have to be that.
That's right. I mean, I've said it before, and you kind of just said it. It's really a good idea and a good approach in going into it. I think not to be obsessed or looking for subs or views necessarily. Just do it for the sake of having fun, and just for doing it because you enjoy it, and let things happen organically. So things will happen. But yeah, if you're having fun, people will see that, and that's all that really matters in the end. People are going to watch your content. Some people aren't. Can't win them all. But at the end of the day, as long as you're having fun and you're happy with what you're doing, it's not much more you can ask for. So Uh, let's see. I know General Strife had a question. Wanted to know about how to get more Buzzbee Spin Blast spinners.
That is something I actually directly asked and talked to the VP over at Buzzbee. And this is a conversation that went back to last year. And they had said they were working on getting separate packages available, whether on their Amazon store eventually, like air quotes, eventually. That's how everything is with the whole Amazon deal. They've told me that they're working on that more and more and more. So, that's sometime. Or through their traditional, that old fashioned order form where you literally contact them, they email you an order form and you write it, you actually fill it out and mail a check. That they still have done that. That's really old school, but they still do it. So they were working on getting the spinners added to that. Now, whether that includes the newer small version, I'm asking that myself because I've got those, and I've actually bought like 6 or 7 of the little versions, and I've got like 4 of the bigger versions, and those things are a ton of fun. And I would actually run it in war, but I need like 50 to 100 of the spinners, and not even I have them. So we need somebody with a 3D printing option.
Maybe you and Strife can team up on that. Let's see. So I'm curious. So you've mentioned, and again, I don't think Buzzbee gets the love that it deserves, but you mentioned that you've modded Buzzbee blasters to be hitting that pro level performance. Can you share some of those blasters and kind of what you've done to those, just so people are aware that Buzzbee can compete too?
Yeah, I actually, if you want them shown, I can have them, but they're right back here on the wall, and I actually have done videos on pretty much every single one of them. There's a Buzzbee snipe that I did a full barrel and breech system on that was hitting right at 210 FPS, and it's doing it only on a 12 kilogram spring. Just massive air volume. And I actually shared, and it's on my channel, with the Buzzbee Sentinel Stinger. That's as I called it. It's in a yellow and black Hydro Dip. And I will actually step away just a second and grab that thing.
Sure. And just for purpose of YouTube, these are all toys, just so you know. So don't be lame. Full disclosure. These are toys.
Okay, I lied. I'm not grabbing the Buzzbee Stinger. It's actually out in a duffel bag in
No
the
worries.
vehicles. But you can find that on the channel. That I modded that and used. It was a breech that you can order off of Etsy from a guy who actually worked with. You might have heard of Nothing Blasters. He worked with him and developed a machined aluminum alloy breech that is nearly drop-in, and it accepts 17/32 brass. And that Sentinel breech is so good, and it is pricey. It's an American-made machine shop that they do it for $60. But I have put a number of those in, and I did grab a blaster from the wall, and I grabbed my Easy Fire mod. We'll step back so you can actually get in frame. And this one also has its own Hydro Dip. And this is
gorgeous.
This is firing at about 170 to 180 feet per second.
Nice.
On an 8 kilogram spring.
Wow.
This is a very light prime. That's just my opinion. And of course, that means you could easily, throw in a 9, 10, 12 kilogram and push it wherever you want it. Because this internal system is pretty robust. So I'm hitting 170 to 180 on a 8 kilogram spring. But you can actually see the machined aluminum breech. If I can line up my camera, you can actually see the shine in there of that aluminum. It's barely visible, but that is a machined aluminum breech with I think this is an 8 1/4 inch barrel of 17/32 brass. It's just long enough to be able to accept a SCAR or a B-car, but be recessed behind the faux barrel. So at first glance, it doesn't look like it's been modded other than the paint job. But this is, of course, the Easy Fire rifle. And that one, absolutely home run that they did a couple years ago. And that you can get on Amazon. And that blaster, to me, was like their first shot of revitalizing an actual, goal of performance modding with Busby. Because I've got a Sentinel beside me I'm working on that is, well, you can see that it does have a brass barrel sticking out. And I can actually, I'm in the middle of this one, so we can actually see a closer look at that breech system. This will be upside down, but you can clearly see the breech. So this breech system running into a very short barrel. This one, when I tested it on a 7 kilogram spring, just as a test run because I'm going to actually hydro dip this one as well, but it was hitting at 185 feet per second on a 7 kilogram retaliator spring. So it's like the sky's the limit. People ask me, why do you mod them on such light spring rates? But with the modding, of course, you have a give and take. If it's not a performance, or say pro level blaster that has this shell that has been, designed for the stresses of high spring loads, you're give and taking. It's going to be higher performance with the higher spring rate and a reduced shell life, or you can cut back on the spring rate a little bit, sacrifice a little bit of performance, and maintain, more longevity. So that's kind of the trade-off. But Busby's plunger tube is not far off of what used to be the Worker Retaliator expanded plunger tube. So you basically have an XPT inherent. It's not quite the same exact volume, but it's close. So everybody knows what the old Prophecy or Retaliator could do with an XPT. Busby basically has already implemented that upgrade straight on their stock blaster. So if you can work with that air volume, you can get performance.
Very cool. So I'm curious, what would you say are your top 3 favorite Busby Springers and top 3 favorite flywheelers that they've come out with?
Top 3 Springers, that's really, really easy. Overall, most people who've watched the channel will know that the Revolution is my number 1 favorite Busby Springer ever. And that's still currently available. That is depending on where you buy it, a $10 or $12 top prime mag-fed pistol that you can hit 160 out of easy, like really easy. And that's a very light prime. And contrary to the popular joke that Busby doesn't know how to make grips, the grip on the Revolution is sublime. It is fantastic. And I don't know why that blaster has never garnered any attention other than like me repetitively to the point of ad nauseum. It's like that blaster should be like a top 10 you must own one, like for everybody out there. For the one, it's dirt cheap, and 2, it mods exceptionally well. But so that's my number 1. And then the Sentinel would be my number 2. And it would be, I'm gonna cheat here, but it's gonna be between the Easy Fire and the Snipe as tied 3, number 3 A and B. That would be my Springers. Now, flywheelers, I'm gonna cheat again because you didn't give me the option to include air blasters, so I'm gonna throw the Destiny in there as, we'll say,
That's
it's
fair.
Automatic, so it's gonna be a flywheeler.
But
it's by far away, and that the Destiny is by far and away for rapid rate of fire blasters. We'll say that's a walk off home run, bottom of the 9th in the World Series. That's the level that I love that blaster. Now, next though would be the Brute and the new Alpha Auto 72 that came out just a couple years ago.
Yeah,
those would be my 3, even though one's not actually a flywheeler.
Yeah, I have two of the 72s, and they're a lot of fun.
Now,
And I always
if you didn't throw the prerequisite that it was a Busby for the flywheeler, this would be the one that might shock people. My favorite flywheeler isn't Busby. It's the Nerf Mastodon.
mm,
That is my favorite flywheeler of all time.
a lot of fun.
And it's
Mega
not
tough to
even
beat.
it's not a Busby, but that is my absolute favorite flywheeler.
And why is it your favorite over Busby, would you say?
Well, for one, Busby never made a flywheel Mega Blaster. And two, it's like I love Mega. That's out of all ammo types, Mega is my favorite. And you literally get to, feel like, think Terminator. It's like you're Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's, I know, old reference from before our time, but still, it works. But you take a giant blaster that stock. I mean, people forget, in this day and age, like a lot of newer members of the hobby may not have fired a Mastodon. That thing, when it came out, had some serious performance. Forget the fact that it was Mega. It was firing 90 FPS with a Mega. So you load that thing up with, and especially after the Mega AccuStrike type darts came out, you load that thing up with those, you could literally be just raining darts long range from an unmodded blaster.
Right.
I absolutely loved it. And when we played we had a mode where it was 5-on-5 with a hit point pool. So it was 6 hits you're out, with Megas counting as 2 and half lengths and standards as 1. And blasters counted as shields. And I sent a picture over in the Discord of me firing a Mastodon.
Let's see if we can get that up if we have that.
That was from that game mode where, I mean, there we were allowed to use the blasters as shields. So something like a Mastodon, it's inherently a pretty good shield. Now, if you don't play those game modes, of course, that doesn't help you much. But we use blasters as shields a lot.
And then my question as the Busby expert: what are some blasters that you would recommend for kids and people that are just getting into the hobby and introduced? And then what are some blasters that some seasoned vets should definitely keep an eye out for, or at least try?
I'm going to actually make it real easy. It's the answer to both is the same. It's the Revolution. If you can get your hands on a Revolution, that thing is a 90 FPS mag-fed top primer, stock without mods, but it also is very welcoming to mods. And I'm going to give a shout out to Performance Mods over on Etsy. He makes a kit that is not quite drop-in, like you need a little bit of skill, but he's got such a great instructional guide that he puts as a PDF when you buy a kit, that I think somebody brand new to modding, what better way than to take like a blaster you only paid $10 or $12 for, and the only thing you have to buy, if you 3D print, which most beginners aren't going to, but there are people who are set up to print his kits. But if you mess it up, it's only a $10 or $12 blaster.
Right.
And like you buy a long shot spring, so it takes a 9 kilogram long shot spring for that kit. So if you mess it up, you just go get another one. So it's for a first time, modder or just user, you're not going to be out a lot to at least try it. And, for somebody who's not modding whatsoever, it's a 90 FPS top prime sidearm that's mag-fed. You're going to outrange anybody who just went out and bought, like, say, I know it's kicking the horse that's already down, but Nerf Elite 2.0. If you go and somebody bought, like any of them, they're 70, 75 FPS. And Busby Revolution is a third of the price, and it's hitting 90.
Right.
And it's like I literally have a shelf of like 20 of them. So and that's not provided by Busby. I just keep buying them so I can keep doing mods. and that's my number one. That's my number one blaster I've given away to people, because if you're going to give somebody this, they can try it and it outperforms. So seasoned user that hasn't tried Buzzbee, it's good enough that it's worth modding. Somebody brand new is good enough that they're going to enjoy themselves, and then, hey, in turn, they could take that thing and mod it.
Right.
And even if they don't, they're going to still have a pretty good time.
So definitely something to keep an eye out, maybe even as a loner blaster, if you have a club and just, stock up on a bunch of those would be a good opportunity to get the Buzzbees into the ecosystem of the clubs. So I am curious. We're getting to that time, but I'm curious. As a Buzzbee connoisseur, how have you seen Buzzbee evolve from the past, and where do you think they're headed to, and what are you looking forward to seeing from Buzzbee in the future?
Honestly, I think now that they went from being, they were genuinely an off-brand. Like, they were as off-brand gets back in 2003, 2004. And you get a blaster from 2003, 2004, and you pick it up, you're like, oh, this is cheap. This feels cheap. It's like, it's neat, but it's cheap. And they've evolved from that to, in the mid 20 teens, 2015, 16, 17, they were a serious threat to Nerf when nobody else was. And, they had their down period there for a few years, but I think they're on a pretty big upswing right now. I only can mention one big miss that they have this year. I haven't released the review to it, and it's not that I've just been holding off. It's that I got everything else done ahead, but they've got one that I'm literally scratching my head of, why did you release this blaster? But outside of that one, they have really, done very well. And that makes me think that if they continue on with, the one that was really overlooked was, we had the easy fire rifle, but the easy shot itself was actually a very good blaster. And I've got one on modding. And when you open it up, you're like, okay, they know what they're doing. The Twist Fury, you open that up. It's like, this is a marked improvement over their past offerings. It's like they're taking this seriously. And I know that Taffy had a lot of it. I actually talked with him a little bit. He had a huge amount of input, but they actually left it open to, this thing is very welcoming to mod. More so than, their solvent welded like vaults of the past. And I hope they keep going with that. And the things that I was literally under a agreed, not legal NDA, but an agreed NDA, that I wouldn't break that. But they have some things that I really hope that they come through with. Because I mentioned this when I was on with Maritime. If they will follow through with some of the things that they've showed me, that would be a really, really positive road for them going forward. But I already think, like, the fact that I think they're right now, them and Dart Zone, they're the far most progressive with hobbyists as far as working with them. And there's nothing but good that can come from that. From, of course, I'm the Buzzbee guy, but Dart Zone as well. Both of them. Nothing but good can come from, working with. We're not their biggest customers, but we're definitely the most visual of their customers. People can find us and see us, and the word can be spread positive or negative. So I think very good direction going forward.
Very cool. Well, I love hearing that. I'm excited to see what Buzzbee has in store for us in the future, especially with the Twist Fury. And as you said, there's some fun stuff that hopefully gets released. But I want to thank you and really appreciate you coming on here, and appreciate your time and effort for joining us. Where can people find you online?
Okay, the main thing is I am not a huge presence on social media, and this may be a shot in my own foot, so to speak, but I've been pulling back more and more from social media in order to balance out life. But YouTube is where I can be found, and of course that is easy to find. It's youtube.com/Mongoose Jake Nerf. That's easy as can be, and if anybody ever wanted to find other content, like my mountain bike channel still exists. it's there as literally, same thing, youtube.com/Mongoose Jake. So Mongoose Jake or Mongoose Jake Nerf. You can find me at either one.
Awesome. Well, Mongoose Jake, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us this evening. Appreciate all our viewers for joining us. Hope you guys have a wonderful and very spectacular Halloween if you celebrate. Next week, we'll be back with Get Off My Lawn with Captain Xavier and Al the Geek. And then we'll be back on the following week, heading into November, getting ready for Foamsgiving. And we'll keep you posted with who we have on coming up. So again, really appreciate everyone. Be good, be safe, happy Halloween, and don't forget to dart sweet. Have a good one, guys.